In 1940, in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, just up from Luxor on the Nile, a sealed jar was found. And in that were writings from pre-Christian Gnostic people. They were the people that ran the great library at Alexandria. Another expression of Gnostic thought later was the Cathars in southern France. And this sealed jar, one of the great things about it is, unlike biblical texts and other texts that have been in the public domain over a long period of time, they can be changed and manipulated. These have been in a sealed jar. So what you get is what they are. And they talk about this force called the Archons, manipulating human affairs. They relate the Lord Archon, or Demiurge, as they called it, to the Christian Old Testament God.
Archons thrive from illness, trauma, sadness, bad things, those sort of things. The real negative things in life.
They say that the Archons in their prime form are basically energy, awareness. But they can take form, these writings say, and about a fifth of these writings were about the Archons. Guess the two forms that they describe that these Archons take. One, reptilian. Second, a form that looks like a grey fetus with big black eyes. They have a great ability to create fantasia. In other words, they create false realities that the target thinks is real. UFO research, alien research as they call it, they're still obsessed with the physical. They still have this idea of physical beings flying around in physical spacecraft, when actually they're just projections into this reality that we see. And the real deal, the real point of manipulation of human affairs is going on way beyond what we can perceive as a reality.
They are absolute masters in deception. This is the biggest thing about the Archons. It's all about the deceit. We see this throughout most phenomena, be it the paranormal, and honestly, be it the ufological as well. It's kind of all wrapped up in this nice little back of deception. You know, what is the aliens? Are they really truly what they represent to be? I mean, the references go back to 1,600 years ago of grey, small beings with baby-type skin, which were grey, and large, dark eyes that never moved. What are them if they are not the small greys of today? That was 1,600 years ago. There is a good strong possibility that there may be some derivative of our dinosaurs that once lived here 65 million years ago. But the thing is, this deception, the Archons have the capability of inverting it. In other words, what you think you are experiencing is nothing of what you're experiencing. It's what they want you to see, what they want you to feel, and what they want you to think. And that's complete and utter deception.
As far as the Archons are concerned, I believe the reptilians and other negative beings that work for the reptilians, that have an agenda inimical to the human race here on Earth and throughout the solar system, all the different human races throughout the solar system, they are manifestations of this archontic influence. So the reptilians are archontic in nature, the negative greys are archontic in nature, the mantis beings that are doing agendas that are not in humanity's best interests are aspects of this archontic influence, because archon means like ruler, hidden ruler. I do believe there is some pervasive energy that has a consciousness of its own. It permeates the entire galaxy. It's parasitical in nature, and it seems to have a consciousness, and it seems to work through all these archontic beings that plug into our reality. They've manipulated things here, so we have this miasma of sorrow, grief, rage, and pain, and hatred. And all those negative base emotions nourish these negative beings at our expense.
Now, there is talk within the ET research community about these archontic type forces having enslaved certain groups of ET races, particularly the ones we consider negative. That would be certain factions of the Greys, certain factions of the Reptilians. In fact, probably certain factions of every race that this archontic force has been in contact with. These alien races that choose to manipulate and persecute and parasitically feed off mankind.
When we talk about demonic possessions, though it's very similar to other experiences, schizophrenia was addressed and cured as a possession, casting out a demon. It's all down to who are really hearing voices, and is there really something more to it than that?
I think if you look at diseases like schizophrenia and neurological disorders, There are a handful of researchers now with scientific qualifications, scientific backgrounds in either counselling or psychotherapy that are seriously questioning some of the patient's motives, looking deeper into the research about what is potential behind just some of these cases, not all of them. And there is some serious investigation being done into that at the moment to see whether there is something else behind this, not just a deterioration of cells within the brain. A lot of researchers and scientists are looking at this now seriously to see whether there is some sort of force manipulating these certain individuals, and these certain individuals seem to have pathways, hidden pathways to us, that allow these entities in.
Television programs like on the History Channel, and they're very good, I'm not knocking, about ancient aliens and things like this. But just like humanity in general, not least because we're programmed to see the world that way, they still are looking at what we call the physical. In other words, they're searching for what's going on within this tiny frequency range we call visible light. Which I mean, humans are basically blind in what we can actually code into a reality we can perceive. And to understand, I would suggest, the nature of the non-human manipulation of human affairs, we've got to understand that reality is not solid. This is holographic. It's illusory solid.
There was a movie that Stephen King came up with years ago called The Langoliers that depicted these Pac-Man looking kind of weird creatures that just gobbled up space-time and always seemed to be chasing the protagonist. I believe there's something to that. And this energy field, whatever it is, has a consciousness.
When you look at the behavior of these hybrid reptilian bloodlines, you look at the behavior of this Archon. Our emotional state, our mental state, our state of awareness, our state of behavior, which is an expression of that state of awareness, is energy. It's an energetic force, and it has a frequency. And this distortion can only feed off distortion. And what it's doing is feeding off human distortion. What it's done is manipulated humanity to create a society which has created energetic distortion among the target population through hatred, anxiety, fear. These are all expressions of fear anyway. Depression, hatred, all these things. So as humans manifest those states, they are manifestations of those frequency states, and the distortion can feed off the distortion that the humans are projecting. So a war to conscious people is a nightmare. To the archontic force, it's lunch. In fact, it's a banquet. People dying of hunger, people dying of disease. They feed off death, which has a frequency. They feed off decay and destruction, which have frequencies, and they're all within. If we change our state of being and project a different energy, we cease to be a battery. You know, in the Matrix movie, when the Morpheus character held up the battery and said the machines have turned humans into one of these? Exactly what's happened. And we don't have to be. You have only got to go onto an internet forum or an internet comments section on anything and see the level of hatred and vitriol that exists within humanity. That's all feeding the force that's taking their freedom away. But they're so programmed, they think they're intelligent, they think they're free. They're not. They're just expressions of this archontic force, which gets them. It's like a feedback loop. We'll put you into this state of being, you create that energy. As a result of that state of being, we feed off that state of being. It's literally like a biological machine they've got going, and that's what they feed off.